and it took me back to high school, and I talked about my dad earlier today. My dad actually told all of my prom dates to take me to dinner after prom because he was sure I was going to spill something on me. And I would like to point out that not once, but twice I've had to speak immediately following dinner after food. So this is, you guys, I had water on me earlier, so I was a little concerned about that. It did dry, so I'm okay. My topic tonight for you guys is break down or break through. Every single one of us faces something on a daily basis. No two of us will ever react the same way. What we do have, though, is we have a choice. We have a choice to break down or break through. For me, personally, I thought that 2014 was the worst year that I could ever live through. I was diagnosed with skin cancer, and I will attempt not to cry. I was diagnosed with skin cancer, and I had major surgery on April Fool's Day. Because why not? I mean, in my mind, April Fool's Day, it's a joke, it's all right. They ultimately ended up, they had to go in, and they had to reconstruct the entire right side of my face. So if you notice in pictures, I always go this way, because this entire right side, including my lip, was reconstructed. When I left for surgery on Thursday night from work, I told them all I'll be back on Monday. When we got in there is when they figured out how deep it was. It had infiltrated the entire set of skin cells in my face. It was just basal cell carcinoma, but they had to keep going. So 3 surgeries later, I ended up being out of work for 8 weeks. I thought I was coming back on Monday. I thought it was just a little blip, and just a little weekend thing. At the end of it, I thought, man, that was a nice little bump in the road, right? I got an 8-week vacation. I always joked about that when I needed surgery, I was going to take, or when I needed vacation, I was going to take and have surgery done. I didn't really expect it to be done that way, though. But that was just the beginning of my 2014. My mother-in-law got very sick, and she was a huge part of my life. I loved this woman like she was my own mother. And out of the blue, she got sick. And then she passed away unexpectedly. None of us expected her to go that quick. She had Alzheimer's, and she passed away just a few days before Thanksgiving. So I'm really having a rocky year. And then I have one sibling. I have one sister, and I love her to death. She was my birthday present that keeps on going because we have the exact same birthday. She had one child. His name was Sloan, and he was 22 years old. And on Christmas Eve, I got a phone call that said my only nephew had tragically passed away. You can imagine how that holiday went, right? Waking my children up to tell them that their cousin had died. Just a few days later, my father had to go in for a routine stress test. But he didn't pass it. And he was rushed literally across the hallway over to the hospital to have emergency surgery. I was sitting in the funeral home parlor in the parking lot, and my mom calls me and she said, I need you to get your sister, and I need you here now. So I go flying up north to my parents' house where my sister was at. It's only been a few days since she lost her son. I get her out in her elf pajamas, and she goes to the hospital with me. And she looks at the surgeon and she says, you can't lose my dad. I just lost my son. Turns out she's a nurse practitioner, and they allowed her, elf pajamas and all, to walk into the ER, into the OR, and she was there holding my dad's hand the entire time he had surgery. Get him out, and while he's in ICU recovering, he had a heart attack. We haven't even gotten to have my nephew's funeral yet, and I was seriously wondering how much more my broken heart could survive. My dad did make it, though. I was working in direct sales business at the time, and I knew that that was what gave me a purpose. Every day I made it a focus to work my business. I refused to break down. I made a choice, and I was going to break through. I worked my business, I went to events, I invested even when my heart was not in it because I knew how broken I was. But every time I went to an event, somebody reached out and they held my hand, they prayed for me, they told me they loved me, they told me they thought about me. And that is what helped me get through the next couple of years, was the friends and family that I built in this drug sales business. And I reached the top of that platform, of their comp plan. And I knew that there was something else that I could do, and I just wasn't sure what it was. And so I looked around the Wichita area, and really there were no affordable meeting spaces that we had in Wichita. So I made the decision to change that. I opened a brick and mortar venue called Suite 109 in October of 2016, which is open to absolutely every person in a direct sales company. I didn't care if you were Mary Kay, Monet, I didn't care if you were Pampered Chef. You needed a meeting space, I wanted to be the person who fulfilled your need. I did it to break even. I had weddings that came in there, I had baby showers, we had, gosh, what else did we have in there? We had networking groups that met in there, and we were doing great. No business I turned away, large or small, parties, gatherings, I was booked. We were doing great. And I eventually decided that I was gonna leave my day job and work the suite exclusively. Well, I decided that I was gonna go ahead and start my own aerospace consulting business. Our meeting space was so successful that the landlord thought that we could afford a higher rent. He tried to triple my rent. I'd been in business for 2 years, and there was absolutely no way that I could justify that cost because that went against every fiber of my being as to what my purpose was. I did look around for other event spaces, but I decided that I was gonna have to close my business. So once again, I felt like I had done something wrong, that the world was against me. And at that point, I knew that I could either fall into a rut and break down, or I could break through. And I decided that I was gonna break through, and that I was gonna focus my business, or focus all of my energies on my growing aerospace company. So fast forward a month, so that was October. Fast forward a month, and my husband began not feeling well. It impacted his job, and he ultimately was let go from his employer. I was traveling all the time with my company, and I was in Minneapolis at the time, and I made a doctor's appointment for him because in my mind, I needed to get at least 1 round of antibiotics into him to try to figure out what was wrong. So I called, it was Christmas time, and his doctor was already out on Christmas leave. So there was another doctor in the office that said that they could see him as long as he was there within an hour. So I called him and I said, I need you to get to the doctor's office, the so-and-so is gonna see you. He's like, all right. So he went to the doctor's office and I called him from Minneapolis and I said, so how did it go? You know, he was mad at me. I was like, I was just trying to help. What's wrong with you? He was mad at me because he said it was a waste of time, a waste of money. I don't have the extra money just to throw away. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the doctor doesn't know me, he doesn't know what's going on, he didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, what did he do? He said, he ran some lab works and sent me away. And I said, okay, well, at least we'll get some answers, right? Like, he'll come back, he'll call us, he'll give you an antibiotic. I had actually flown out early that morning because the day before, I had gone and done my own doctor's appointment. And it was about 2 hours later, I was walking in Mall America to go spend some money, and the phone rang. And it was the doctor's office, and so I thought it was calling about my test that I had done the day before, but instead, it was his doctor. And they told me that if I didn't have Kevin on the phone within 5 minutes, they were going to do a 911 welfare check on my husband. You guys know you go into crisis mode, right? Like, something's wrong with your husband, you don't know what's going on, and I'm like, what do you mean, what's wrong? And they wouldn't tell me. And I'm like, no, look, I'm on his account. I'm the one who, I make all the decisions. And he's like, I can't talk to you, I have to talk to him. So I tried to three-way call him. He hadn't answered because he was on the phone doing a phone interview. And I was able to get a three-way call and get him on the line where they grabbed the physician to talk to us. We were directed to have somebody drive Kevin directly to the hospital. He was just talking to me, like there's nothing wrong with him, right? Why can he not drive himself? So I told Kevin to pack a bag, and I called our kids and I said, I need you guys to run to the house and pick Dad up. He's got to go to the hospital. I don't know what's going on. I'm out of town. I can't help. So they agreed they were going to run over there. And as soon as I hung up, I called my travel agent to see if I could get a flight home or if I was going to take that rental car and drive 10 hours home. The travel agent told me, can you head immediately to the airport? And I said, yes, I can. So I flew across Minneapolis, GPS going to the airport. I had no idea where I was going. Get there, pull in to return my car, and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to put gas in the car. Like, that's what I was thinking about. Like, I needed to put gas in the car because I didn't want to get charged, $9.99 a gallon. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And I rattled something off, and the girl was like, don't worry about it, just go, just go. I pre-checked, I had a carry-on bag, but I took off running through the airport because I was like, if I miss this flight, I just returned my rental car, and I'm gonna have to start this process all over again. I got to the gate. As she was saying, it was the last call and she was starting to pull the door shut. And I was like, wait! And she was like, okay, I don't know where that voice came from, but all right. I made it back to Wichita within 2 hours of being admitted to the hospital. I didn't have time to really freak out because I didn't know what was going on either. I just knew that I needed to be home as soon as possible. The next morning, the doctors came in and told us that Kevin needed emergency surgery as his kidney levels were off the chart. They were going to do dialysis to see if they could bring the creatinine down. And we were told at that point, when it didn't bring it down, that he was in end-stage kidney failure. That was what had caused my husband to get sick. I had a choice at that moment. I could break down or I could break through. I chose to break through. All I could think of was income, insurance, saving my husband's life at all costs. And I didn't sleep. We didn't tell our kids what was going on while we were at the hospital that whole time. We were like hiding the dialysis machines. The kids would come in, I'd be like, you better hurry up, dialysis nurse, because my kid does not know what is going on. Guys, my kids are gonna be 30, 29, 27, and 26, and I did not tell them. I went into typical type A personality and began making plans for his future and securing what we needed to do to make sure to save him. Kevin was released from the hospital on Christmas Day. We had our kids meet for a gift exchange and tried to give him the most normal Christmas that I could. Because I didn't know if that was the last Christmas my kids were going to get with their dad. So after everything settled down, we sat them down and we told them that we had to talk. And we told them what was going on. I think they were a little bit mad at me because they'd just spent a whole week in the hospital and they didn't know what was going on, but that was mom's prerogative. But seeing your 4 adult children cry because they don't know what's going on with their dad and the fact that they might lose them was heartbreaking. It was even more heartbreaking to me than what 2014 was. But I made a decision that night as I ran outside to comfort my son. My husband would live, and I would do everything in my power. I had that choice once again. I could break down, or I could break through. We went through countless surgeries, failed dialysis catheters, seizures, hospital stays, doctor's appointments, and we continued to push through to transplant. Transplant for us was the ultimate goal. Every day I had to convince myself that it was a good day, no matter the trials and tribulations that we faced. I watched my husband withering away in front of me. We spent about 6 weeks in the hospital at the beginning of 2020, over a 90-day span, and then COVID hit the world. We were at the point where we thought we were going to get on the list for UNOS to be able to get my husband a transplant. And then COVID hit, and everything shut down. All of my hopes, after spending all that time at the beginning of 2020, I'd actually had a conversation with his doctor at the time, the nephrologist, and he looked at me and he said, we have to dual list him, because if we don't dual list him, he will not make it through 2020. And I'm like, all right, what do we gotta do to do that? So, our chances at transplant because of COVID felt like they were slipping away. everything was shut down. And I literally watched Kevin die in front of me every single day. But I wouldn't give up. Again, I knew that if he didn't get that transplant, I was going to lose my husband by the end of last year. In the midst of all of this, because I put myself on the back burner because I was so busy worrying about everybody else, I went in for some simple surgeries because once again, they had just found a little bit of skin cancer, not a big deal. I was a teeny bed baby, so I was used to squamous cell, basal, whatever. After they reconstruct your face, that's all just like, whatever. But we went and do surgery that day. And when they removed what they thought was just a squamous or a blue nevus, they opened it up and there were nodules underneath it which contained malignant melanoma. Malignant means mean. Mean in the cancer world is bad. Melanoma is the worst skin cancer that you can possibly have. It was time once again. I could make the choice. I could break down or I could break through. I chose to break through. My oncologist opted to do a wide local excision. He opened my arm back up from shoulder to elbow to clear the tract of cancer cells out and to check my lymph nodes. The cancer hadn't spread to the lymphatic system, so once again, I put myself on the back burner. I went back to taking care of Kevin. I made lists, I talked with transplant teams, I drove him back and forth to Kansas City because if you've ever dealt with medical issues, you know if you're trying to get something done that Kansas City needs and they try to do it in Wichita, it might be 8 weeks later before you have an answer. And I didn't have 8 weeks to give. And I took my type A personality and I channeled it all into saving his life. But all of a sudden, my contingency plans came to a screeching halt. Because for us to get him listed and listed quickly, he needed both a pancreas and a kidney. In the UNOS world, that means you go to the top of the list. I was out walking with my girlfriend one day while Kevin was at dialysis, and they had been going back and forth to committee discussing his case. And I knew that that Wednesday that they had discussed him once again. And the phone rang and I was hot and sweaty, but that was like the only time I got for me was while he was at dialysis. Because of COVID, I couldn't go in. So that was 4.5 hours I got to myself. And I was walking when that call came in, and the transplant coordinator looked over the phone. I heard her say, "Tanya, I can't dual list him for a pancreas." I doubled over in the middle of the park. Because she had called me, she hadn't called my husband. She called me to tell me that. So now I was the one who was gonna have to call Kevin, or when I picked him up, I was the one who was gonna have to tell him transplant didn't look like it was gonna happen. They told us that with just a kidney, we were looking at a 3-year wait. Remember, the doctors and I had already discussed that if he didn't have a kidney by the end of the year, he wouldn't make it to the new year. That was the end of June, and I had less than 6 months left of the year. And you know me, that timeline just wasn't gonna work because I really wanted my husband. Even if he drives me crazy, I still wanted my husband around. So I went into making plans B, C, and D. I did my research. I reached out to other transplant facilities. I would relocate us to wherever I had to be to ensure that there was a surgeon who would take care of him. We went ahead and told KU to get us listed because we could transfer our time once we found a new surgeon. So that was the end of June. Kevin's birthday is July 9th, and on his 52nd birthday, a week after that call with the coordinator, we got a call that they had officially listed him for UNOS with a kidney-only transplant. And it was a bittersweet moment because, yeah, it was what I needed, but it wasn't what I needed. But I made the decision that night that I was going to be proactive with letting people know that their loved one's organs can save a life. It might not save my husband's life, but it just might. So I made this random Facebook post just basically saying, our nights of sleeping without a phone on, blah, blah, blah. Here was his information. If you happen to lose a loved one, think about us, think about transplant. Even if it didn't benefit me, it would benefit somebody else's family. That Facebook post was shared over 50 times. You guys see the signs on TV where people have been waiting for years for kidneys, right? They're posting, they're wearing t-shirts, they're putting billboards up. I made a simple Facebook post because that type A personality in me said, I will not break down, damn it. I'm gonna break through, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Less than 6 days later, we were on our way to church when we got the call. His phone had rang. He doesn't answer it. He didn't think anything about it. My phone rings. I'm like, hello? She says, Tanya, I have a kidney that has Kevin's name donated in his name. His name is on this kidney. Do you want it? I was like, yes! But of course it's COVID. So here's all these fears that are going through my mind of what could go wrong. And so I walked into the kitchen and I said, Kevin, they have a kidney for you. And he was like, what? You told me 3 years. And I was like, God had other plans. He said, absolutely wanted it. It was a resounding yes. To be listed and receive a kidney offer in less than 1 week is unheard of. There's not a single person that was on the medical staff that had ever worked with a patient who had not been on the list for at least a year. If you're a numbers person, that's 144 hours. A lot of people spend 144 weeks and 144 months on a transplant list. We packed the car and we headed to Kansas City, where we arrived in the middle of the night during COVID, and we were escorted by security to his room because of the protocols. Kevin underwent a successful kidney transplant at 7 a.m. that morning. Due to COVID requirements though, I could come, I could stay at the hospital, but if I left my husband. So I didn't leave my husband. Tim and Tiffany were the first people who sent me a meal. They were the first people who reached out to me to say, are you okay? How is he? For an owner of a company to call you like that makes you committed. Due to our proximity to the hospital or from home to the transplant center, we had to live in Kansas City for a month, where Kevin was only allowed between hotels and a hospital because of COVID. His immune system was wiped out. So I could have been upset about it, but I chose to be happy in the fact that I had my husband. Once we got released, we got to come back to Wichita. But it was a very isolating 6 months because, again, he couldn't come into contact with anybody who might have COVID. He couldn't have any germs. He couldn't do anything. And as much as I'm an introvert, I know you guys don't believe it, it was very isolating for me. Once again, I had a choice. I could break down or I could break through. I could let the depression of COVID pull me down, not having the socialization, or I could focus on the fact that my children had a dad who was living and thriving, and I had my husband, everything that I had just spent the last 2 years fighting for. He's now doing great 1 year later. It's amazing. During that time, I was actually able to work my aerospace consulting business the entire time he was sick. I didn't have to worry about FMLA. I didn't have to worry about telling somebody I didn't sleep the night before and I was gonna be late. But my schedule was limited. He couldn't be left alone for very long because of the seizures, and I was exhausted. I barely had time for me, and my nails were pretty plain at that time. I tried dipping, and let's just say I was a big failure at it. I actually told them no when they talked to me, this person talked to me about dipping. I told her no 3 times, and I finally was like, whatever, it's $37. You've wasted $37 way before, so just try it. So one night at midnight, I did my nails, and I liked the products, and I made a post on Facebook that said, y'all, I did my nails at midnight last night. And I woke up to so many comments that I was like, I mean, I guess if I join and I get a discount and I can have pretty nails again. And if somebody happens to buy something from me, then they buy something from me and I make a commission, right? So I call that my midnight decision. Pretty soon, one person joined, then another, and I just kept growing my business. I remember that I was asked to do a training at the beginning of 2020, and I said yes. But unfortunately, I told you that over 90 days, we spent a lot of time in a hospital bed, or hospital room. And we just happened to be in the hospital when that training was set. But I didn't want to say no because I felt like it was this big privilege and honor to be asked to do this call. I had told Kevin that I was going to do it, and he was sleeping. And apparently when he woke up, I might have been a little too loud, and so there's motion on the cameras. I'm trying to do this new consultant call, and I try to go find the lobby, and the lobby is filled with people, and so that's just not gonna work for me. And so I ended up sitting in the middle of a hallway, by an elevator, crisscross applesauce, doing a new consultant call. You guys, if I can do a new consultant call in the middle of a hospital, there is nothing that you can't do with dipping. I dipped my nails in the hospital and in a hotel room so many times I quit counting. If I can do it with my schedule and what was going on, any of you can do that. It was proof to many people that with my schedule that if I could do it, they could do it too. And that was what helped me build my business. But every single day, even with the depression setting in, I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice whether I was going to break down or I was going to break through. And that became my moment. You guys, it's not about squeaking through life. You don't have to be in a corner by Grumble Alley and by Sorry Corner and This Sucks Street. That is not what life is about. It's how you decide to thrive in your difficult moments that will define you as a person. You don't just wait out the change. You can't be passive. You don't accept the things as they are because you just want them to be. You have to make them happen because you want them to be. When you face adversity, it's an 8 count. If anybody's watched boxing, it's an 8 count. Just because you get hit once and you hit that mat does not mean that you're out, right? You got the count of 8 to get your butt back up and do it again. And believe me, I hit the mat so many times in 2014, 2019, and 2020 that I didn't think I could do it anymore. But we're a huge baseball family. And so for me, I felt like every single day that I was at home plate, that I had a bat in my hand, that there were 2 outs, there were 2 strikes, and I was the last person whether or not I was going to win this game if I got on base and scored that winning run. So I could make a decision. I could get in, I could dig in, and I could foul off every pitch that that pitcher sent me in this game called life. Or I could sit back and I could just look at that 3rd strike. But you know what? Once you look at life a whole lot of times, you know what's coming. You know that that pitcher thinks that it's going to be a fastball down the middle. That's what life throws at you, is these big, fat fastballs. You make a choice as to what you want to do. Do you want to foul out or you want to go back to the dugout? I made a decision every single day that I was going to swing. You decide. You can break down or you can break through. You don't just block, you go to battle. Your decisions determine your outcomes. It's how you respond if you will have a victory or you'll be defeated. You can sit back or you can encourage yourself to move forward. In March of this year, when I thought everything was going normal and great, I had a spot on my arm that was just sore, and I really thought that our puppy must have just sniffed me while we were playing. It didn't go away. So I went back to my surgeon who made the decision to remove it just to be safe. I'm so glad that he erred on the side of caution that day, because a week after surgery in April, I was diagnosed with recurring metastatic melanoma. The cancer was back, and it had spread. I could choose, once again, to break down or break through. I'm standing here today, I don't think there's a single person who's going through treatments that nobody would have felt any reason why if they didn't show up. But I'm standing here today because I knew, once again, I was going to stand up and I was going to break through. I have treatments every month. I get tired and I nap a lot, but I focus on the battle and breaking through. You can make it through any disaster. It may be brutal right now, but you can do it. You make the choice. Will you break through or will you break down? During one of my most trying days with Kevin being sick and in the middle of our battle, I watched a speaker, and she had this video as part of her presentation, and it constantly stuck with me. So I'm gonna play this video real quick, and then I'll go back to finishing this up. I don't know. Do I have to push a button?
Push the button. Will you push the button?
I push the button. Green for forward, right?
Yep.
Here on course, and they're all fueled up. That's a nice gate start there for the 19 plate, getting out ahead. Ferocity there for the RSP team, giving it the beans out over the front. So big fat whip. Oh, that's too much. Oh, that's gonna come deep.
I'd say he didn't break down, right? He broke through. I'm like, Tim told me not to push the buttons too many times, so we're just gonna leave it like that. That video stuck with me through everything that I went through. I was like, somebody said that was awesome. I was like, wait, am I hearing voices? God, are you talking to me? Whew. In BMX, just like in life, you start out high in the blocks to gain speed and momentum, to handle the twists and the turns and the bumps of the course. Most of the time, if you lose it on a BMX track, though, you don't finish the race with a place or moving on. But the rider in this video was a lot like me. Nothing could stop him, no matter what obstacle he was faced. I look around this room, and I see women that I consider to be my friends. I see friends who have lost family members. I have friends who have changed jobs, who have had major surgeries, who have had major health issues. They've had moves, and every single one of you is a fighter. You are a fighter, whether you knew it or not. You made the choice. You made the choice to break through and not break down. You are a survivor just like me. So I hope that each of you will choose every single day to break through and to win with me, no matter what you're battling in your personal life or your business. Thank you for this great opportunity to speak with you guys tonight, and I can't wait to watch each of you break through in your business and in life.